Hello everyone, my name's Caden and welcome back to more Chaos Head Noah. Last time, we were continuing out through our shortcut endings and, or, what am I saying? Wow, that didn't even make sense. We were continuing making our way through to ending B, and now we've reached it, and we've reached a point where things are starting to get very different. So I think it's time we get our second ending today, probably. In the dark recesses of the platform, two figures stood shoulder to shoulder. One was a tall man wearing an expensive suit. His whole body exuded an aura of refinement. He had excellent posture, and a relaxed smile rested on his lips. The other was a homeless man clad in filthy rags. His hair was unkempt and shaggy, and his face was covered in stubble. The man's head was hung low, rendering his expression difficult to accurately discern. Their appearances contrasted violently, but the two men did nothing but stand silently on the dim, empty station platform. Sena felt nothing but raw hatred toward both of them, Narose Genichi and Hatano Issei. Even if she wanted to forget about them, she would never have been able to. The ones who killed my mom and sister. Here, say hello to me. A long time ago, her mother and her little sister had met their gruesome ends right before her eyes, and the people before her now were the very people who had killed them.
It was never my intent, Sena.
With his head still hung low, the homeless man, Hatano, let out a desolate murmur.
I tried to stop the experiment, but once the gears had begun to turn, I was no longer able to stop them alone. This man...
Hatano took a fleeting glance at Narose's expression. Narose said nothing, his composed attitude remaining unmoved.
This man... He was the one who ordered the experiment's continuation. I never desired what came afterward. The fault lies with this man, Narose. Please understand this, Sena.
Sena's repugnance billowed as she listened to his words of repentance. You let my mom and sister die. That is an undeniable truth. If you regret so badly, why'd you run?
To protect the world.
Bullshit.
I cannot say I admire this disobedience toward your father, miss.
It was the first time Narose had spoken.
Indeed, your family meeting a tragic end was the result of the order I had issued. We had already collected a sufficient amount of data. The experiment truly was fruitful.
Fruitful. Sena swiftly wielded the D-sword she held in her hands. The resulting shockwaves stirred her long black hair.
Kill him, Sena. He's the source of everything.
I don't need you to tell me that. Sena had already kicked powerfully off the platform. Without brandishing her sword, she closed the distance, a phenomenal display of her explosive power. Her target, Narose Genichi. Nope. She mowed him down with her D-sword. Even the air was torn to shreds. Narose's head tore free and flew away from its source. Sena followed it with her eyes, when suddenly, Narose's flying head distorted mid-flight and transformed into that of her father's. Yep. Stunned, she looked at the headless body that stood before her. It had been wearing a suit only a moment ago, but now it donned the clothes of a homeless man. Devoid now of any and all power, it tumbled backward lifelessly. Yep. Eyes wide as could be, Sena looked at Hatano, who had been standing just beside it. He turned to face her in return. His bearded face warped into a vicious sneer. His face contorted as if a mosaic had been affixed to it, and his body contorted in a similar fashion. You... The very next instant, Hatano took on the face of a man Sena did not recognize. His age, face, aura, they all differed greatly from her father's. Sena was overwhelmed with confusion. She took another unblinking look at the head she had just severed. After tracing an arc as it flew, it splattered blood upon where it struck the concrete. It was her father's face. It was her father's head. Sena could not look away. An illusion made by a delusion. Realizing that, Sena's breathing grew shallow and ragged. You know, Sena-chan, the man who was supposed to be your father, the man who was now a completely different person, spoke Sena's name in a far too friendly way. What you did just now doesn't pretty much make you the same as your old man. It was a result she had longed for all throughout these past 6 months. It should have been. It should have been, and yet, Sena was assailed by fierce inner turmoil. Her father, who had just been reduced to a head, had his eyes trained directly on Sena. Decapitating your own father, now that's gnarly. Still not comprehending why she was experiencing such psychological shock, Sena had heard something tear deep inside her ears. I heard a voice. The scream of Sena's mind. A scream which cursed reality. A scream which emulated madness. I followed that cry all the way to Shinsen Station. But by the time I got there, it was already too late. When I set foot onto the dim platform, the faint smell of blood hung in the air. Kazubi was lying against the wall unconscious. And there on the platform was Sena, sunk to the ground with her back facing to me. Her head was pointing down and her long hair was covering her face. I couldn't see her expression. Right beside her was a headless body. It then occurred to me that the round object flying a few meters away was the head that had once been attached to it. It was Hatano-san. The moment I realized that, I bit my lip hard. Oh man, talk about a stroke of luck! A man was standing on the tracks. Contrasting heavily with the suit he was wearing, he had a rucksack on his back. A harsh mechanical noise was emanating from it. Suwa Mamoru, a detective from the Metropolitan Police Department's Investigation Division. This wasn't the first time I'd run into him, and I knew exactly what he'd done. You see, I originally came here to get rid of those annoying Asatanos. But look who decided to crash the party. What up, Nishijo-kun? I really appreciate you tossing yourself into the line of fire like that. I was told to grab you if I ran into you, so here we are. By who? That one's top secret. He smiled a flippant smile, one that was somewhat reminiscent of Detective Band's. But there was one key difference. Detective Band's smile had always been just an act meant to throw people off or rile them up. When it came to Suwa, however, this sly smile was who he truly was. Hey asshole, you know where to find Narose? Oh, come on, Nishijo-kun. Suwa heaved a sigh as he shook his head in an exaggerated manner. Would it kill you to throw a bit more respect my way? I'm older than you know? With my eyes still trained on Suwa, I cautiously jumped down from the platform and onto the tracks. Sena was still motionless, so I ended up effectively shielding her back. You were the one who killed Ban. Yeah? What of it? You're a detective. You go as low as to kill people. That's real rich coming from you. I grabbed my D-sword tightly. As if I'd ever be polite to a bastard like you. Like I said. That's real fucking rich coming from you. Even from this distance, it was clear to see. The smile on Suwa's face had disappeared. You're just as much of a murderer as I am. And no, I won't let you call bullshit. You killed Hazuki Shino. You have no idea how much I'd love to tear you to fucking shreds right now. Hazuki Shino, the nurse who had been the real New Gen culprit. She and Suwa were both disciples of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. Was that all? I gulped audibly. For the sake of the Divine Light's salvation, I'll restrain myself. But in exchange, I will make absolutely sure to murder your heart and mind. I attempted to brandish my D-sword, but it was obvious I wouldn't be able to do anything. It was just a reflex, and just as I expected, I wasn't able to do anything at all. Oh boy. I found myself in a dimly lit room. In that room was a single man, talking to another much older man through a large screen.
Suwa-kun,
I've prepared a form of training I'd like for you and Hazuki to undertake. Yes, sir. Whatever you ask. I want you to kill. Whose I will be killing, sir.
There's no particular reasoning regarding who.
Humbly, sir, may I hear more?
Let's say there are no exact rules on the matter. Simply obey the orders of whom to kill and how to kill them. To bring about the completion of Project Noah, it is crucial that we enact a psychological attack upon the boy known as Nishijo Takumi.
An attack, sir.
We must instill in him the grace of terrors, but beware, if the boy harbors a frightening power, direct engagements will require extreme caution. Therefore, I ask you to create a string of abominable incidents, a set of grotesque serial killings.
Luring people just for that.
Having doubts?
Is Shino to take part in this training?
Why, of course. This is all to build our utopia of the divine light. You two shall bring about the salvation of the divine light.
If that's what you command, then it shall be done.
Incidentally, Hazuki-kun has blessed us with a child within her womb. Pray tell, how soon is the delivery?
2 months, sir. Oh, God. Wait. Oh, God. The child, Hazuki's child, is also freaking Sua's child, isn't it?
Offer it forth. Offer your child so that we may bathe in the salvation of the divine light.
You wish for me to kill it?
It is a holy sacrifice. Offer your child, and you will both bring about the great salvation of the divine light.
The great salvation of the divine light. With pleasure, sir. All will be as the glorious founder commands. I know Shino will be similarly pleased. May the divine light save us. Jesus Christ! And suddenly, an insanely powerful wind blew against me. It pushed me backward hard, nearly knocking me over. I tried desperately to brace myself against it. However, my body didn't do what I asked. Instead, my body curled up into a ball on the spot. My body wouldn't listen to me. It moved by itself. It was like my body wasn't my own. Before I knew it, my surroundings had gone completely dark. When I looked below, I saw the nightscape spreading out before me. If I didn't know any better, I could have easily mistaken all the lights as a sky full of stars. I suddenly realized that I was standing somewhere ridiculously high up. Beside me there were 4 men and women I'd never met. No, I knew one of them. Yua. For some reason, though, she wasn't wearing her glasses. Oh, this is the first. No, that wasn't Yua. It was Mia. It was Mia. Yua's younger twin sister. The one who should have died a month ago. Which meant this was... the first. The roof of Cornelius' tower. My body wasn't my own. I was wearing a school uniform I didn't recognize. Even the body type was brawnier than my own. And when I saw that there were 4 other people huddled together on the ground, wailing loudly as tears poured down their faces, it led me to guess what exactly was happening. This body that my consciousness had invaded belonged to one of the 5 victims who had died in the first New Gen case, the group dive. Through no will of my own, my field of vision ever so slowly panned over toward the helipad. Shogun had filmed the video, so he should have been here somewhere. There. Shogun was wearing a Darth Spider helmet on his head and a black cloak draped over his body. When Shogun had cornered me at Ofriend, he'd been wearing something similar. But was this guy actually Shogun? No. His legs were slightly peeking out from his black coat. He was very clearly wearing slacks. In addition, his legs were thick, like those of a healthy adult male's. They weren't the skinny, pathetic legs that belonged to Shogun, to Nishijo Takumi. No bones protruded from them. When I looked closer, I realized that even his sitting height was completely different. The cloak kept them hidden, but his shoulders also looked fairly broad. At the very least, the man wasn't Nishijo Takumi. And he wasn't carrying a video camera. Suddenly, from the darkness spreading out behind the fake Shogun, I heard footsteps. Dragging footsteps. And not just one set of them. It wasn't a hallucination. The strange footsteps belonged to many, many people. There had to be several dozen unknown entities lurking in the darkness. The footsteps happened in the video that had been uploaded on YouTube. Not to mention, there shouldn't have been any way for this many people to have gained access to the helipad. Then, what the hell was the sound? 4 others behind me continued to wail in grief. Through no will of my own, my body similarly let out a cry, and then began to tremble. What the... Something was coming closer. If I was in a low-budget horror movie, these bedragging footsteps would have been zombies. Zombies with both arms hanging down limply in front of them, their decaying bodies slowly swaying as they walked. But that was just in movies. In reality, and especially in 21st century Tokyo, there's no way a horde of zombies could possibly just show up like that. If that was the case, then what were they? My heart felt like I was going to seize up in terror. I wanted to look away. But the owner of the body I'd invaded refused to do so. Finally, the unknown entities began to emerge from the darkness. They choked all remaining space on the helipad, sealing off our escape route. I wasn't sure if it was right to call it anticlimactic, but the ones who appeared were perfectly normal people. They wore suits, school uniforms, parkas, and they were of different ages and sexes. They were still all people you'd expect to find walking around Shibuya at night, save for one thing. Every one of them was gripping some sort of bladed object. None of them said a word, nor even tried to. All that could be heard was their rasping nasal breaths, pulling together into an abysmal cacophony. For some reason, I couldn't see their expressions well. It's like their faces were made of paint that had been blurred away. Their faces were blurry. Were their faces actually deformed? Or was my sight itself the problem? They were sluggishly, yet steadily coming toward us. They were like robots that had been programmed with a single mission. I thought that perhaps the fake Shogun was ordering him around. That didn't seem to be the case. Every once in a while, he would move his wheelchair. The 5 people had all been cornered, and now they had nowhere to run. Nowhere to escape from the 180-meter high rooftop. They had no choice but to dive. Grasping their blades, the mob grew closer. Closer and closer, little by little. Eventually, they were within reaching distance. And even in these final moments, they all stayed completely silent. As well as this, even as they drew nearer and nearer, they didn't make any attempt to jump the victims. But the strange behavior served to make it all the more terrifying. Terrifying enough to make me think, I need to get out of here, even if it means I have to jump. Whose eyes are those eyes? I heard an unexpected voice. The voice of the real Shogun, Nishijo Takumi. However, I hadn't heard from the man wearing the Darth Spider helmet, but from overhead. And it seemed like I hadn't been the only one to hear it. As if they'd rehearsed it, the 5 cornered people all stood up, joined hands with one another, and looked up at the sky. Naturally, only the starry sky spread across the night. Shogun nowhere to be found. Mind reading. Whose eyes are those eyes? My field of vision slowly panned, and then I saw something strange. Even though the nightscape should have been the only thing spread below me, I saw a long flight of stairs stretching downward. It led right to the roof of the adjacent building, not Sign City, which was across the Metropolitan Highway. But the building nestled up close to Cornelius Tower. A building nestled close to Cornelius Tower. A fact that didn't make any sense because no such building existed. Even so, the 5 people held no suspicions. These thoughts, these emotions were conveyed directly to me, and then, only them in mind, they stepped forward, hand in hand. Yet they had yet to let go. None of them possessed any desire to dive. So when the staircase had been I can't speak. Falling. Wind pressure violently assaulted my body. Shrieks of the girl next to me emulated howls of a most terrifying beast. The time it took for the 100 meters, darkness rushed. Surroundings were dark. I started to hallucinate. And then... Surroundings were so dark. I started to hallucinate about falling into a never-ending abyss, one that endlessly sucked me down deeper and deeper. And then... the bodies of 5 people collided with the earth. With a sickening crunch, they were pulverized. The pain struck without me expecting it. A single blow that led straight to death. The impact felt like my entire body had exploded and then been ground into a fine powder from the inside out. I felt the sensation of my heart violently contracting from the shock. And then my consciousness was severed. My eyes were forced open, and a new scene burst forth in front of me. I was walking down Tamagawa Dori. My body was completely intact. Yet the sensation of crashing into the ground remained distinct. Through no will of my own, I was walking down the street as if it were any other day. This body was more in shape than my own. This wasn't me. I had a terrible feeling about this. I think I see what's going on. We're going to be reliving the deaths of all of the victims, aren't we? Suddenly I noticed a strange man walking toward me, and when I saw him, I was forced to acknowledge that my terrible feeling had been warranted. The man passed me. He was wearing a fairly normal suit, but on his head he had a Darth Spider helmet. It was all too surreal. There wasn't anyone else around. I wanted to run away as soon as possible. And yet, despite my wishes, the owner of the body my consciousness had invaded looked over their shoulder at the man he had just passed. Darth Spider was right behind me. He was so close I could almost feel his breath. And then, bursting out of my blind spot, his fist flew straight into my stomach. Hospital. All the strength left my body and my vision went black. Not long after I lost consciousness, I began to feel an intense searing pain spreading throughout my abdomen. Yep, here we go. When I opened my eyes, I was still in an operating room. Wearing only white scrubs, Suzuki Shino was standing in front of me. Her scrubs were wide open, revealing her bloodied abdomen. Even though her face was a sickly pale, she looked at me with a gentle smile. In her hand was a scalpel she slowly laid against my stomach. She applied some pressure, and with a slight ripping sound, a small incision appeared in my skin. Ugh. Blood spurted from the wound, dancing through the air before landing on Suzuki Shino's face. And yet, despite that same bright smile stayed plastered on her face. I watched in horror and pain as she slowly sliced me open. I'd seen this scene once before, back when I had read Hazuki's memories. The man-child case. The pain in my stomach was becoming unbearable. Screaming and sobbing, I tried to escape somehow by thrashing around, but my limbs were all fastened to the bed. I was unable to move. Any movement would lead to the pain in my abdomen growing far more intense. May the divine light save you, sir. With her hand resting upon my cleanly sliced open skin, Hazuki began poking around the gushing wound with her fingers. That alone pierced me with enough agony to shower my mind. I could very clearly feel the sensation of her fingers writhing around the side of me. And then, just as I'd seen in her memories, Hazuki forcefully widened the wound from both sides. The sensation of skin and flesh tearing. The lack of anesthesia left the pain raw and unfiltered, causing me, along with the owner of the body, to lose consciousness, only to be woken up immediately after by the overwhelming pain. But Hazuki kept forcibly widening the wound all the same. The details no longer mattered to me, such as where it hurt, or where specifically on my body the pain was erupting from. I hallucinated all my nerve endings being pierced with searing hot needles. I passed out again. I couldn't escape. The pain mercilessly forced my consciousness back awake. I let my body writhe in pain. I found myself thinking that if it would release me from the suffering, I'd be willing to bite my tongue off. But just as I thought that, I saw something. There in Hazuki's hand was a blood-soaked fetus, something that served only to make her smile all the more revolting. This woman was well and truly insane. She took the corpse of the fetus she had removed from her own body and then plunged it deep inside my abdomen. Her hand, and the fetus she was gripping tightly in it, shoved aside my organs, gouged my flesh, and gnawed deeper and deeper into me. I began to vomit blood, but even though it threatened to suffocate me, gargling screams rose from my drowning throat without end. Perhaps due to the pain overloading my brain, my head felt strangely foggy. And yet, despite that fogginess, the pain refused to get any more bearable, and I began to comprehend less and less of what was happening. Pain was all that ruled my mind. Hazuki then withdrew her hand from my stomach and nodded in satisfaction. Then, as if attending to a patient, she spoke a few soft words. You've done so well. The very second she finished speaking, she suddenly lost consciousness and her body collapsed to the floor. At the same time, someone else entered the room. The sound of his shoes reverberated within it, but I had no interest in whoever it was. The sole thing I focused on was continuing my bawling and screaming, unable to feel anything but agony. Seeing the unnatural expansion of my stomach, I fell into a panic. Along with the pain, I began to feel an itchiness. It was itchy. Really, really itchy. I wanted to scratch it, but my hands were tied to the bed, so I couldn't. Suddenly, a shadow obstructed my view. It was Darth Spider, appearing from almost nowhere. He picked up Hazuki in his arms, exited the operating room with her, then came back alone a few moments later. He was carrying a sewing needle and some nylon thread. What he was thinking I didn't know until he began to stitch together the wound on my stomach. The pain was practically nothing, compared to the pain of having a foreign object shoved inside me. nor the agony of having my flesh ripped open. Darth Spider's sewing was incredibly sloppy. Even a grade schooler could have done better. Every time he pulled at the fishing line, it chafed against the chasms he'd opened in my skin. The itchiness grew more intense. An unbearable itchiness. An itchiness that seemed to well up from deep inside me. Itchy. 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 I wanted to scratch it. If you'd just let me, I wouldn't even mind if I died. The tingling itch combined with the pain. And yet even more than the pain, the itch threatened to drive me completely insane. Due to my mental state, it took me a while to notice that the scenery had changed once again. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, I need water. I don't like this anymore, man. I felt slight relief from the pain and the itchiness, but the sensation hadn't completely disappeared. Even now, as I stumbled through Shinshen, I felt an itch in the center of my body, but along with that itch, I felt the sensation of a foreign object in my abdomen, as well as the pain of a needle weaving in and out of my body. They all remained as distinct, lingering discomforts, continuing to torment my mind even now. I was in an unlit, rarely used road. As I walked down it, I saw a figure coming toward me. The road was so narrow we would have had to turn sideways in order to even pass each other. But when I saw what the figure looked like, my body turned to ice. Yet again, it was the man dressed as Darth Spider. We passed each other. Darth Spider didn't give any kind of reaction. My heart was beating out of my chest. And then something surfaced in my mind. An incredibly compulsive urge, one that made no sense for me to feel. A crusty old fuck had been hitting on my girl. Pissed me off like you wouldn't believe. I wanted to kill him. The extremely abrupt feeling drove me forward. The face of my girl was foggy in my memories. I couldn't remember her very well, to the point where I wasn't even sure if she existed in the first place. And yet the crusty old fuck who'd been hitting on my girl was crystal clear in my mind. I'd seen his face before. He was the victim of the crucifixion case. My memory launched forward, placing me in a dark, narrow alley, an alley I knew all too well, the scene of the crucifixion, and in front of me was the victim of that case. He was a middle-aged man, and my hands were wrapped tightly around his neck. His body convulsed violently, bubbles frothed from his mouth, and his eyes rolled back into his head. Upon learning what it felt like to have someone's life disappear in my hands, I went slightly cold. Eventually, the man stopped moving. When Kameda, the perpetrator of this case, confirmed he was dead, I released my hands from his neck and let him collapse to the ground. I gave him a single parting kick in the side, then immediately went to leave. I heard a voice, and when I turned around, the man who was supposed to be dead was getting up. Eyes still rolled into the back of his head, and then he reached for me. With a yelp, I punched him, knocking him to the ground. But even though his movements were sluggish, he kept getting back up no matter how many times I hit him. I grabbed his neck again. Just as I'd done earlier, but this time with even more force. I wrung my hands tightly around his neck. I put all the strength I had into my grip, applying enough pressure to snap the bones. He soon stopped moving again. This time I put my ear up to his mouth, and once I made absolutely sure he wasn't breathing, I let him drop. I watched his body for a while. And then somehow, the man who should have died twitched violently and began rising back to his feet. The expression on his face was one clearly fitting of a dead man's, and it didn't even change slightly as he moved. Rising up from the ground, he started coming toward me. As I stumbled back in fear, I stepped on something. Startled, I looked down at my feet. A large number of cross-shaped stakes were scattered across the street. I had to stop him from moving anymore. I had to drive a stake into the monster that I was facing. If I didn't, I'd be screwed. Overwhelmed by the impending danger, I shoved the man against the wall before he could finish getting up. I picked up a stake, and before I knew it, I was gripping a hammer in my other hand. There we go! Once again, I found myself in the operating room, but it wasn't the man-child case again. Despite knowing that, the pain from that experience, coupled with the sensation of a foreign object in my stomach, continued to torture me. It ground away at my each and every nerve ending. I could see two figures in my field of vision. They both were as still as could be, staring in my direction with bated breath. One of them was Darth Spider, and the other was Suzuki Shino. Her scrubs weren't soaked in blood this time, which was what led me to believe that this was a different case than the man-child one. I was lying in a bed. A needle for an IV was embedded in my arm. However, nothing was being injected into me. The liquid in the tube was flowing backward, and the liquid was blood. My blood, the blood that circulated within his body, was being sucked out through the IV. At the end of the tube, there was only an extremely dirty bucket. It was filled to the brim with blood. The blood continued to fall into the bucket. Drip, drip, drip. My head felt fuzzy. I was incredibly dizzy. I was assailed by an intensely peculiar sensation, one where a pleasant feeling, like my consciousness was floating far away, intermixed with the pain and itchiness left over from the man-child case. And then, as if showing off to me, Darth Spire and Hazuki tentatively embraced each other like lovers. As the two supported one another, Hazuki's face couldn't have looked happier. I couldn't understand how she could make a face like that while in the middle of creating the dried-up corpse from the vampire case. But before I could think about why I couldn't understand it, the pain grew far more intense. My throat was sapped of all moisture, my vision gradually darkened, and my consciousness slowly grew thinner and thinner, until eventually it evaporated completely. Jesus Christ. I then realized this was a vicarious experience. I was being forced to experience a series of new-gen murders vicariously. I was facing the pain of each case, the fear, one by one. If that was true, then there were still 3 remaining. Realizing that, my despair pulled me down even deeper.
Sensei.
Doctor? Someone called out to me, and I came back to myself. I should have been in the operating room, but I was still standing in the hallway of some hospital.
Dr.
Takashina? Unsurprisingly, through no will of my own, my body turned around. Behind me was Hazuki Shino, accompanied by a somewhat somber expression.
Excuse me, Doctor.
I would like a word with you.
We'd attract attention
out here, so please follow me. Her voice apologetic, Hazuki entered an examination room. My mind screamed, don't go at Dr. Takashina, but unsurprisingly, my voice didn't reach him. It was currently after hours at the hospital, so no one else was in the exam room. Hazuki walked steadily towards the center of it. I, Dr. Takashina, followed her without even the slightest doubt. And then she abruptly stopped. Just as I wondered what she was doing, a man wearing something black on his head leapt out from the darkness. I reeled back, startled, only for the man to shove something akin to a piece of gauze over my mouth. And just like that, my consciousness was stolen away. An ear-piercing noise rang throughout my head. My skull was vibrating violently. But it wasn't just vibrating. It was being shaved to dust. I felt that sensation incredibly clearly. The sound died down, and when I opened my eyes again, I was in the operating room once more. Like a collection of numerous eyes, many lights bore down on me from the ceiling. They shone down at me brilliantly, illuminating my face.
Your cranium has been removed, Doctor.
Doctor, your dura mater is so pretty. In a thoroughly enchanted tone, Hazuki said those words, picked up a pair of scissors, and used them to cut away the solid membrane covering my brain. I felt the sensation directly, and immediately following it, I was seized by a sickening, almost frustrating feeling. I, or rather Dr. Takashina, hadn't known that Hazuki had the ability to perform surgery, let alone open brain surgery. As a result of this, my mind erupted with surprise, followed by me noticing that my body was incapable of moving due to the anesthesia. Hazuki wasn't alone in the operating room. The man wearing black from before, Darth Spire, was there too, but he said nothing. He simply stood there, not moving a muscle.
There have been cases in which non-restrained patients have remained alive in a state of brain death for upwards of an entire week. Were you aware of this?
Without losing the gentle smile on her face, Hazuki whispered something strange in my ear.
In other words, people can live for quite a long time without the brain.
Doctor, how long will you live for, I wonder? I shuddered. An unfathomable terror rose up from me. Hazuki held a spoon in front of my eyes, only for it to leave my vision soon after.
Dr. Takashina, may the divine light save you.
Without warning, I felt a foreign object being forced into my head, and not inside my head in the sense that it wasn't really happening. Something had literally been forced inside my head. I felt the sensation of something entering me, then moving around. There was no pain. However, it was more than enough to fill me with disgust and terror. Hazuki shook off a piece of something onto a tray sitting beside me. Only moving my eyes, I looked over to try and see what it was. It was a beautiful pink color, but it had been smashed into a pulp. It reminded me of a soft salmon roe. Realizing it was my brain, my sense of dread peaked. I pleaded with her. Please stop.
Salvation.
But Hazuki's hand didn't stop moving. Instead, her expression turned to one of pure ecstasy. Her cheeks were stained a bright scarlet as she carelessly dug through Dr. Takashina's brain, taking more of it with every scoop. Suddenly I was having fun. I wanted to laugh. Suddenly I harbored an intense hatred. Suddenly I felt happy. Suddenly a furious lust burned within me, rising up and constricting my chest. She stirred my brain, stirring my emotions along with it. Jesus Christ. Emotions different to what I myself felt boiled up within me. Because of these emotions, my mind, heart, and soul were drifting away from the consciousness known as me, forcing me to confront the ambiguity of my own existence. As the mental that sought to deny my own existence tore my mind shreds, I found myself in the railway underpass. If I went off the case order, this time it would be the finger food case. As I expected would happen, my body was now a woman's. I was incredibly hungry. Perhaps the victim had been on a diet or something. I crossed paths with the man in the Darth Spire costume once again. Everywhere I went, he would show up. Considering how much his appearance stood out, why hadn't the police or mass media gotten anything on him at all?
That looks pretty tasty there.
It was the first time Darth Spire had said anything. He pointed at my right hand as he spoke. It was a surreal spectacle. For some reason, I was holding 5 bare chicken skewers, each one sticking out from the gaps between my fingers. Warm-looking steam rose from them, as did the juicy aroma of cooked meat. Both things further stimulated my appetite. Saliva overflowed from my mouth. Unable to wait another second, I took a bite. A sharp pain shot through my finger, but I couldn't stop chewing. I'd never had such incredible, delicious chicken in my entire life. Jesus. The tons of juices escaped from the meats, dribbling down into the pavement below. It was delectable. It was to die for. In the blink of an eye, I had cleaned the skewers up completely. Before I knew it, Darth Spire had disappeared. But it didn't matter much to me. I didn't even care about that strange man at all. I wanted to keep eating. My stomach cried out for more food. The fingers on my right hand throbbed with pain, but my hunger easily overrode it. Once again, I looked at my right hand, and that's when it happened. I hadn't just been holding chicken skewers. I had also been carrying a large slab of meat. The glorious protein was still fastened to the bone, with its dripping juices staining the sleeves of my blouse a dark shade of red. When had I got my hands on this? How long had I had it for? That question, too, quickly became unimportant when faced with my overwhelming hunger. I sank my teeth into the meat with all the strength I could muster. Excruciating pain. I ripped a chunk off, chewed it, tasted it, then gulped it down. The meat was tender, and it carried a fair amount of fat. I bit deeper. Both my hands and the area around my mouth were greasy with fat, but I didn't care. I'd never experienced such an incredible flavor before. I tore the meat off the bone. Fat melted and gushed throughout my mouth, leaving a unique aftertaste. It hurt. For some reason, it hurt so bad I thought I would die. But I kept chewing. Compared to how large the bone was, there wasn't a lot of meat on it. It didn't take long for me to eat it all up. Finally, I licked off the remaining tiny scraps of flesh that were clinging to the bone. Every piece I set free, I suckled on, savoring the taste of meat and bone. The 5 slender bones protruding from the ends weren't too hard. If I wanted to, I could bite them off without much trouble. I gnawed on the bones. A fierce pain rippled through me, a pain so intense I nearly collapsed on the spot. Tears streaming down my face, I gleefully slurped up all the remaining juices that were oozing out from the inside of the bones. I tore free one of the bones. The intense stimulus led me to crumple to the ground, rolling the bone around in my mouth as I did. Chomp, crunch. When I went to swallow it, the bone got stuck in my throat, and I could no longer breathe. My legs swung uncontrollably, kicking every which way. But before I knew it, I had a string had wrapped around my ankles, stopping them in place. I could no longer move freely. Darth Spire was standing in front of me. Writhing in agony, the exposed bone of my right hand struck the ground. The impact sent violent, rippling waves of pain. throughout my entire body, and I immediately pissed myself. And I would never open my eyes again. Damn. I opened my eyes in a dim back alley. The scenery was a little different from before. I was walking down the alley while leaning on a male Doku's shoulder. His face was horribly beaten, and he looked like he was about to cry. The three of them, including me, were in an awful condition. Their clothes were soaked with blood, their faces were ridiculously swollen, and they all had a number of chipped teeth. The person who'd done this was probably me. It was the three Dokuns that beat me up. And after that happened, they had their torsos torn apart and died. Once again, the man in the Darth Spire costume was there, standing at the end of where we were walking.
Hey, asshole. What the fuck is that?
The guy who was lending me his shoulder shouted at Darth Spider, but with his face as it was, any impact it could have had was pretty much halved.
What the hell was up with that Nishijo piece of shit?
He's like a fucking monster.
So he turned the tables on you and you ran away. Lame. Just give us some money already. Hand it over. Money? Don't play dumb with us. Say it yourself, asshole. You said you'd pay us if we scared Nishijo shitless.
One of them grabbed Darth Spider. Holding him by the collar, he lifted him up, then hit his black helmet with his hand.
Cats go through some pretty fucked up shit. Take off the mask. Take off the fucking mask.
He forced the helmet off. I had already predicted the face that would be under it, and of course... there he was, Suwa Mamoru, looking completely unfazed. He was Azuki Shino's accomplice, so he was another culprit behind Nugen. Suwa rammed his knee deep into the stomach of the man grabbing him. His agile movement set him apart from the reckless violence of the Dokuns.
Well, since I'm all done with you three...
The ground shook slightly.
What was that?
Behind Suwa, there was a presence, hiding in the darkness deep within the narrow alley. Something was there, rumbling with an eerie growl, and for what I could tell, it wasn't a normal size. Even though we couldn't see it, the fierce bloodlust given off by that monster made all of our hearts seize up. What the... Eventually, with footsteps that sounded like the very ground itself was rumbling, it showed itself. A literal, real-life monster. It was so unbelievably grotesque. Nothing else like it existed on this earth. Its brown, slimy skin glistened, and its gigantic head sat wedged between its shoulders. Its scarlet eyes shone brightly. Its mouth tore open on both sides, and its wrists were as thick as giant logs. The bipedal monster came up beside Suwa and opened its gaping maw wide as could be. Its rows of sharp teeth glinted, reflecting the burning glare of the streetlights. Its roar was like a low, dull growl. I can't speak anymore, holy crap. And yet, it was more terrifying than anything I'd ever heard. No beast could have ever hoped to compare. A roar with such ferocity, even the very souls of all who heard it would tremble.
What is that? Okay, so I'm really into Spark Wars.
So was the only one who didn't seem bothered by the monster's appearance. On the contrary, he touched the monster's leg and blamed satisfaction, caressing it.
This big guy is one of the aliens from it.
Another roar. The monster stepped one step closer to the frozen still trio. We tried to run, but there was no escape. We screamed for help, but there was no one around for kilometers. An overwhelming difference in power. The difference in potential between our species was too great. The three of us were helpless when faced with the beast before us. For the first time in our lives, we experienced fear from the deepest depths of our heart. When someone is frightened like that, they fall silent, shrink back, and can't move even a single muscle. And so the monster let out a single breath and swung its log-like arms. In an instant, as if they were mere ragdolls, the two of them were torn to shreds. Blood and viscera splattered across the alley, steam rising from the remains. The severed corpses of the two men were then viciously tossed aside, skewering them on the handles of nearby telephone poles.
And that just leaves you.
Sua's gaze pierced through me. I realized then that he was the one controlling the alien. I told myself this was an illusion, but there was no point. In the face of absolute terror and overwhelming brutality, I simply slumped to the ground and pissed myself. All I could do after that was look up in a daze at the monster, and then... my torso was ripped apart. I felt this in a way no other human could ever possibly experienced. And then... I stopped breathing. Jesus. How many times had I died vicariously? 3 times? 1 time? 7 times? 4 times? 2 times? 5 times? Human flesh tasted amazing. It hurt. No more. Darthspire's outfit was surreal. It had to be a joke. So wait, how many times had I died? Wait, who died? Not me. I wasn't dead. That monster was seriously straight out of a horror movie. But that monster was from, Suicide was from Spark Wars. So what? Human flesh tasted amazing. The bones, too. Why was Darth Spider black? Hazuki Shino was sexy, but she was scary. She was crazy, but that was what made her sexy. If Darth Spider was made of bones, what was human flesh? How many times had I died in this prank? Or was it a prank? No, I wasn't dead. I was dead. Death. Dead. Dead. It was surreal. No more. Or bones. Don't want to die. Black. I died. So kill me. Inside the rucksack Sued wore on his back, the port let out a strange mechanical sound. Sued had long since grown accustomed to hearing it. And because of that sound, he had been able to murder the heart and mind of the gigalomaniac Nishijo Takumi. He lifted up a heartfelt prayer in gratitude. No matter what, Sued would have never let Nishijo Takumi get away with what he had done, for the boy had driven Hazuki to suicide. Hazuki was Sue's childhood friend, whom he had lived with ever since he was born. Sue recalled what she had told him several years ago, back when he had decided to aspire to become a detective and she to be a nurse.
Mamoru, I want to have your baby.
Both their parents were disciples of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light, and God and the glorious founder had been in their lives since birth. Sue and Hazuki had both been raised as children of the Divine Light, and their betrothal was the will of the glorious founder as well. And so the two of them dutifully obeyed the teachings of the Divine Light, going so far as to offer the life of their child within Hazuki's womb. Even when Hazuki had given her life as a martyr, she had still believed she was doing the right thing. The 7 incidents, colloquially known as the New Generation Madness, Sua and Hazuki had caused them together. Partway through the incidents, Sua had grown quite flustered when his senior, Ban Yasuji, pointed out all the inconsistencies in the group dive video. The video Sua had uploaded to YouTube had been recorded by projecting his memories. However, as it had been a few days since the incident at the time of his recording, his memories had grown far less clear. He had not remembered the exact details of the scene, but since the video would not have been realistic without them, he had expressly gone to Cornelius' tower to review the photos hanging in the lobby. As a result, the video had indeed been made more realistic, but he had failed to choose the correct picture. He had no reason to suspect that something would look so strikingly different between the tower's completion and the present. However, thanks to the political influence of the glorious founder, all of that had been suppressed. It would be unwise to underestimate the power of the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light's glorious founder. He had many connections within the government, and he had even managed to weave several of his followers into management positions at the Metropolitan Police. No matter how much those like Ban cried out for justice, the natural conclusion to come to was that they'd never be able to do a thing to harm him. I need to put my jacket back on. I took it off.
It's too cold up here. Trying to get in position again. Sorry.
Sua's position as a detective. Hazuki's position as a nurse. The support coming from the pressure of the glorious founder placed on the police and the media. The NOAA system terminals was provided by Nozomi Technology. Utilizing all those tools, Sua and Hazuki had focused solely on killing. As for the reason they'd gone to such lengths to continue killing, it had been all for the sake of breaking Nishijo Takumi. After they forced him to awaken as a gigalomaniac, they would kidnap him and harvest his code sample. Alternatively, by breaking the delusionary Nishijo Takumi, they would lure out the real Nishijo Takumi, capture him, and harvest his code sample. As long as it was Nishijo Takumi, it made no difference if he was real or a copy. That was why Sua had acted as Nishijo Takumi, using a wheelchair in his impersonation attempt. It had all been foretold by a divine prophecy bestowed upon Sua and Hazuki, one they had to fulfill no matter what sacrifices they would have to make during its course. And now, after sacrificing Hazuki, they had at last been able to overcome the trials given to them by God. The face of the woman who had loved him, and the one whom he had loved in return, rose in Sua's mind. He gritted his teeth in intense sadness, bearing the utmost grief. As he bathed in sorrow, Sua approached Nishijo Takumi, whose mind he had just slaughtered. At the edge of the platform, Aoi Sana cradled the head of her father, whom she had herself had decapitated. She had fallen to her knees long ago, and now she sat alone atop the train tracks. Her chest dyed a deep crimson from her father's blood. She laughed. Drool slovenly seeped out from her mouth. Her eyes were unfocused. Sua, now having composed himself, glanced at the girl. "She's already long gone," he muttered to himself inside his head. In any case, her usefulness had expired, and he felt no need to kill her. From the gigalomaniacs who had been gathered in Tokyo for Project Noah, there were still two whose code samples had yet to be harvested. This number excluded Kusunoki Yua, for she was an irregularity that had never been suspected of being a gigalomaniac. The remaining targets were Nishijo Takumi and Orihara Kazue. It had to be the infallible guidance of the divine light that the two of them had fallen right into Sua's hands, in the same location even. He had now received total proof that his actions had always been proper and just. For this, he held endless gratitude toward heaven and the glorious founder. Upon reaching Takumi, he dropped to his knees, grabbed the limp boy's upper arms, and attempted to forcibly pull him to his feet. But Takumi had already gone hollow. He was no longer capable of standing. His heart and mind had perished completely. Serves him right. With a snort, Sua began to walk away, dragging Takumi by the arms along with him. Kazubi was shouting something. It sounded painful. Like she was hurting? Maybe having fun? I blinked my eyes. Where's Kozupi? She was hanging from some weird cross art. Rimi was at her feet. She was laying on the ground tied up round and round. Kozupi was weird. Her clothes were torn a lot. They were in pieces. And there was creepy crawling. Creepy crawling. What was? Her shell. Her skin. Her cheeks and her neck and her arms and around her belly button and up her thighs and creepy crawly, squishy wishy. Lots of thingies were wiggling under Kazupi's skin. Not one, 10 thingies, 20 thingies, maybe 30 thingies. I think they're parasites. Yucky little caterpillars. Kazupi shaky shakes her head around. Her eyes went everywhere. Lots of drool dribbly drip stribble. Her face looked super stupid. Looked funny. She was also wearing a thingy on her head. It had lots of cords coming out of it. Like a toy. Like a super duper Power Rangers toy set or something.
Is there something Is there something soon? Nishijo Takumi?
An old guy I'd never seen before. Who? Who? Who?
Ah, I see. So you have consciously synchronized with Oriharu. Quite the curious specimen, aren't you? There's no need to show such luster. I'll make sure to treat you to plenty of torture after.
Who's next? Me? I didn't want that. Who's next? Me? No, I didn't want that. Who's next? Me? No, I didn't want that. I didn't want any suffering. I didn't want any pain. Taku, you can stop him. Right now you can stop him. I know you can. My wrist should have been tied behind my back, but suddenly, as if it had a will of its own, the cord loosened and fell to the floor. Tied up and lying on the ground, Remy turned just her gaze to me. Her eyes pleaded with me. A gigantic device sat in the center of the dome-shaped room, giving off an eerie hum. That is Noah 2. Destroy it. Rumi's eyes asked this of me. A tall, intellectual-looking man, Narose, had his back turned to me, and he was watching Kozupi's torture with an earnest look on his face. He hadn't noticed me moving. There was no one else around. Not even Sua. I could do it now. I was the only one who could. But I was scared. What if Narose caught me? What if I failed? When I thought these things, my body began to tremble. There was something seriously wrong with this game. Forcing the fate of the world onto someone like me. But I had to do it. That realization and resolve came to me with surprising ease. Maybe I'd grown stronger. Yeah, that was it. I was strong. I was super strong now. I stood up, slowly. Narose still hadn't noticed. For a final boss, he was a total dumbass. Was it that fun watching Kozupi suffering? Raw disgust flowed through me. I gritted my teeth. Come forth, D-Sword. Ripples appeared in the open air, and a blue light burst forth. I grasped it. I felt it. Neither cold nor hot, neither hard nor soft. I drew it from the direct sea, and a long grand sword settled in my hand.
What?
He finally noticed me, but it was too late. I reeled booted my D-Sword. I sent particles flying into everyone's dead spots. I'd done it completely unconsciously. The method that I'd used or how it worked didn't matter to me. I just had an illusion and it had come to be. I gripped the hilt of my D-Sword with both hands. Its glow transformed from blue to red.
Your hearts and minds should have been annihilated.
Narose stared at me in disbelief. He was shrinking back. I'd won. I grinned from ear to ear, raised my sword, and formed a delusion. This was a sword of light. It possessed incredible power to cut through the very air itself. If I called forth all its power and swung the blade, it could reduce anything on this earth to rubble. Take this! I couldn't come up with a name for my special attack right on the spot, so I just gave up on shouting something out. Besides, this wasn't some shonen manga. I took up all the power I'd stored in my D-Sword through delusions, and unleashed it all toward Noah 2. Did we actually do it? What? 2 months later. What? The winter sky was barely blue, but in exchange, unlike the summer sky, it was crisp, cool, and carried an almost translucent aura. It was morning. A few minutes ago, my eyes had opened to the sound of my alarm clock, and now, as I brushed my teeth, my gaze shifted up toward the sky. It had been 2 months since that insanity. Shibuya was still in the midst of its reconstruction efforts. Ever since the new year had first kicked off, little by little, Shibuya had been slowly returning to its noisy, gaudy-ass self. Taku! A voice called my name. I don't believe this. When I turned around, I saw Rimi making her way up the stairs. I hadn't seen her in her school uniform since that day. Rimi gave me a big smile and took a salute-like pose.
Bishi, good morning. Let me get some breakfast waked up for you.
Rimi was holding a bag from the convenience store. Inside were some eggs, milk, and white bread. Standing in front of the sink, she cheerfully started making preparations. For the past 2 months, Rimi had made it a point to come to my base pretty much every morning to cook me breakfast. Apparently, she hadn't done much cooking before she met me, so this doubled as practice for her. I wanted to tell her not to use me as her guinea pig, but just being able to get to eat a girl's home cooking at all made me incredibly happy, so I just bit my tongue and put up with that.
School starts up again today. You excited?
Ever since the earthquake, Suzume Academy had been closed down, but it was finally reopening today. I plan to use this opportunity to leave behind my semi-shut-in lifestyle, starting by seriously attending school.
You know, this thought makes me pretty happy. Seeing to go to school with you again, I mean.
As she said that, Rimi cracked open an egg. As one would expect, it wasn't exactly feasible to eat outside right in the middle of winter. You'd freeze your ass off. To avoid that, Rimi carried inside the 2 servings of toast and scrambled eggs she made for us, and set them down on the small table beside each other. And once her hands were free, the 2 of us sat down next to each other on the sofa.
Well, day in.
Thanks. After putting my hands together, I reached for the butter sitting at the edge of the table. However, Rimi had done the same thing at almost the same moment, and her fingertips brushed up against each other atop the container of butter. What a rom-com-ass plotline. Smiling wryly at them in my head, my eyes soon met with Rimi's, who was sitting extremely close to me, and my heart began to pound. Rimi didn't take her eyes off me, nor did she pull back her hand. Both of us had gone rigid, staring at each other as our fingers touched. Taku. Rimi intertwined her fingers with my own. I don't trust this. Her eyes softly closed, and then she ever so slightly lifted her face. Naturally, I held Rimi's hand in return. I slowly neared her lips.
Are you guys seriously flirting with each other? With flirting this early in the morning? What?
I flustered. I jumped away from Rimi. Nanami? Yep. When I looked up my door, I saw Nanami standing there. I had no idea when she'd shown up. All I knew was that her arms were crossed, and she had a pretty exasperated look on her face.
Na-chan, good morning.
Nanami,
don't do stuff like that. You're gonna give me a heart attack.
Well, I see you and Rimi are sure getting along. He's kind of jealous. Real talk though, I'm curious how far you 2 gone? What do you mean, how far? Here you go again. Quit playing dumb and just tell me already, Rimi-san.
Seemed like Nanami had selected Rimi as her next target. Barging into my room, she pulled aside my computer chair and sat down in front of Rimi.
Obviously you 2 kiss, but what about beyond that? Hey, stop teasing me. Oh, come on, you know you love it. Now tell me. Not telling. Oh, fine. Then you tell me, big bro. How far are you 2 gone?
I'm not telling you. Besides, we haven't even kissed yet. God, why did you have to remind me? God, I'm such an idiot. I've had so many chances before now. I hate myself. At this rate, I felt like I'd never lose my V card. Starting to get depressed at how much of a loser I was. I gulped down some milk.
You never know, Rimi-san. If you take it too slow, I might just end up stealing it away from you.
Nick! Practically a gallon of milk spurted from my mouth.
Ew, that's nasty.
What? You just...
I was just kidding. Don't be so uptight.
Could you please stop trying to give me a heart attack? This is too perfect. What's really going on is what I wonder. Side by side, the 3 of us walked together to school together. Rimi was humming that Phantasm song again. Passing through the center of Shoto Park, we took my usual shortcut. You could still see a few traces of the earthquake around the park. For example, part of the stone wall circling the pond was still broken. Even then, though, it was still way better off than the rest of Shibuya, especially when compared to the sad state of the center of it.
Good morning.
Yu was sitting on the bench, turning toward us. She put on a gentle smile and bowed her head.
Nishijo-kun, I had a lot of fun yesterday. Yesterday?
You and I went shopping together in Akihabara.
Oh, I see. You went to buy dolls.
They're figures, not dolls. Well, it's true that we'd gone to buy figures.
The moment I got home, I put my brand new search on display in my room. Ah, I wish I could have gone.
Rimi, are you interested in figures? When I asked that, Rimi gave a slightly sheepish smile.
Well, it's more like... I don't like the stuff you like, Taku. Oh, talk about bold. Alright, then you can come along next time. Huh? Really? Thanks a bunch.
You and Rimi have really hit it off. I don't trust this. None of this is real. You and Nanami's classes were both in different buildings, so we said our goodbyes at the school entrance. As I changed into my indoor shoes, someone came up from behind me and blew into my ear. I shuddered, goosebumps springing up all over me, jumped away and spun around. There stood Ayase, wearing a narrow smile.
Good morning, Takumi.
Oh, morning.
Morning, Aya-chan. Aya-chan.
Ayase tilted her head when she heard Rimi call her that. I had never been... This is the first time someone has ever called me that. I do not mind it.
How do you like it?
Over tomorrow, there will be a Phantasm concert. She abruptly changed the subject. Unsurprisingly, Ayase was as hard to get a read on as ever.
If you would like, come to it.
Is that directed at me?
I am indeed talking to you, Takumi. And to Rimi. Oh, really? I'm going 100%.
Phantasm had broken up a while back, but I heard they had a sudden revival after the New Year started up. Yeah, this is all too perfect. Show me what's really happening. I didn't know where the change of heart come from, but what I did know was that I wanted to hear more of Ayase singing.
But I will not give you Takumi.
I didn't really know what was up with the but Ayase reached out and softly caressed my cheek, as if she was showing Rimi her place.
See you later, Takumi.
With a bewitching smile, she climbed the stairs in front of us. In a daze, I watched her go without the faintest clue of what had just happened.
Taku, you're drooling.
Huh? I quickly shot a hand to my mouth.
Gotcha.
When we reached the outside of our classroom...
Takumi-san!
Hello, Kozupi. Kozupi came racing down the hallway, her smile stretching from ear to ear. Nice job. But before she could make it to us, she suddenly crashed into a boy coming out of the classroom and landed flat on her butt. Her eyes swimming with tears, she apologized to the boy, then finally managed to get over to us.
Morning. Are you okay? Hey, you know you shouldn't run the halls, Kozubi.
Kozubi started fidgeting. She then looked up at me from below.
It's because I want to tell Takumi-san something super duper fast.
What did you want to tell me?
Look.
Kozubi pointed in the direction she had just come running from. When I looked closer, I saw Sena standing there, leaning against the wall. Her arms were crossed, and she had a fairly sullen expression plastered on her face.
Sena-san's out of the hospital.
Sena had been hospitalized over the past 2 months. Sue's psychological attack had put her out of commission for a long time. I still don't trust this. I still think it's too good to be true. Sena raised her head, then slowly began making her way toward us. She was just as scary as ever. She always carried a certain aura, one that gave off the impression that she would suddenly slap you even if you hadn't done anything wrong. I'd gone to visit Sena in the hospital twice a week, but no matter how many times I tried to make conversation, she never said so much as a single word. The awkwardness had been torture. Could it be that she just hated me that much? I didn't really know how to handle her. A fierce tension hung in the air between us. Then again, it would have been more accurate to say that only I was freaked out. She was fine.
So when school's over, let's go celebrate Sunshine being out of hospital.
Zubi was the only one showing any sort of enthusiasm. Well, I mean, a party with this kind of atmosphere would be pretty shitty.
Nishijo.
That was when Santa finally opened her mouth. I shrank back, refusing to meet her eyes. Here. Santa held something out to me. It was a small stick with the word win on it.
Hmm? Oh, it's a wing crunchy coon sticky stick.
Bewildered, I accepted it. Santa quickly looked the other way. I have something I want to tell you. What is it? Was it just my imagination, or had Santa's cheeks turned pink? Whoa, that was a weird. I have not seen this portrait of her before, and it looks wildly different. That was weird.
Huh?
What? Why is Kazupi? Her sudden confession left not just me, but Rimi and Kazupi all speechless. For a moment, I thought she was just teasing me, but Santa wasn't the type of character to make those kinds of jokes. Which meant... Are you serious? Uh-oh. Oh, this is weird. Go back to your other expressions. Go back to your other portraits. That's weird. That's too weird. No. Don't like it.
You came to visit me all those times. It made me happy.
Okay, thank you.
Don't make me say it, you idiot.
She had gone all dairy, then straight back to sun mode all on her own. Wait. Go back a little. This is all way to sun. Way behind schedule, Rimi let out a cry in surprise. Kazupi, likely still processing, had her eyes open wide.
What, Sakiata? You have an objection? Yeah, lots. Where? You can't.
Oh dear. Whoa. Confusion. Rimi and Kazupi were obviously baffled, but the most bewildered one of all was me. I wouldn't have ever expected something so insane. Without any idea of how in the hell I was supposed to react, I gazed up at the clear sky sitting outside the window. Somehow, even though the semester had only just started, it was already quite the eventful day. I wonder, will every day like this be like this from now on? Will these fun, peaceful times go on forever? I sure hope so. I wished for it from the bottom of my heart. Suddenly, I saw the reflection of my face in the window. And the reflection I saw wasn't me, because it was covered in wrinkles. Color and light disappeared. I was hugging my knees close to me in a space dyed pitch black. In front of my eyes was the only light source around. It was like a monitor. It was like a window. It was like a picture frame. Inside it, Rimi, Santa, and Kazupi were chatting happily about something, but I couldn't hear their voices. I stared at it. My emotions were completely inactive. Or maybe my heart was simply dead. I then realized I had been watching my own delusions. A 2D world where I had escaped into. A perfect illusion. How long had it all been a delusion?
From the very beginning.
I looked behind me where Narose stood tall. With how dark it was, I could only see his feet.
Suwa-kun annihilated your hearts and mind, did he not?
So ever since he'd done that, I've been in a delusion the entire time?
I was able to harvest your code sample. Now that you've served your purpose, you are free to return to dust whenever you please.
I felt nothing. My heart was dead after all, so I shouldn't have felt anything. And yet, a single tear trickled down my cheek. In the end, I'd gone right back to being a loser. I had to run away from the painful reality.
How wonderful it is that you may see a pleasant dream in the end.
Even to the very end, I had been a completely worthless human being. I'm sorry, Rimi. I apologize, but I didn't really understand why I had to anymore. I didn't feel any guilt. And so, I decided to return to my delusion from earlier. Hopefully, someone would kill me one of these days. So until then, I wanted to fully immerse myself in the happiness that came from the world I'd escaped to. Better to live a lie than face the truth. When the rain began to fall, Or perhaps this rain had been brought into the world by Noah too. A gaze rained down from the sky. The stare pierced through the thick, pitch-black rain clouds and poured down on me like rain. It's too late for him now. I whispered in my heart to the owner of the gaze. I didn't feel the chill of the rain. Instead, the droplets on my cheek felt warm to me. It was the first time I'd ever thought of rain as being warm. Perhaps it was the fall of the spine-chilling cold enveloping the dome where Noah too was. Reflected in my eyes was a ruined city. In my eyes was despair. Was death. Was nothingness. Not a soul was here, or moving, or left alive. The only thing I could hear was the sound of the rain continuing to pour. The ark had already been set into motion. We had been unable to stop it, and now the future held nothing but despair. At this rate, everything, both the living and the dead, would it all be gently embraced and washed away? I heard him whisper all of this inside his heart. His heart, it's so beautiful. I walked to the figure lying limp in the rubble. It was my fault he had ended up like this. If I had done better, he wouldn't have gotten involved at all. Feelings of guilt tortured me. I blamed myself. It's Remy. Forgive me. I'll give you peace now. It's Remy. How he had been born was far too sad. How he was going to die was far too sad. A heart so timid, so fragile. It was like it was made of glass. Glass so pure it shattered its owners to pieces. At the very least, I didn't want him to suffer in the end. Lying on the ground, he looked up to me with vacant eyes. I pushed aside my emotions. Though I was looking at him, I tried to distance myself in an attempt to stave off my tears. If you and I were the only ones left in the world, if we stared into each other's eyes like this for all eternity, would my world be reduced to what's reflected in your eyes? Would your world be reduced to what's reflected in my eyes? The only thing reflected in my eyes was him. The only thing reflected in his eyes was me. When I thought of it that way, the world immediately seemed so much smaller. At least in the time you have left, I will become your world. Where the world is painful, whether the world is agonizing or sorrowful, I'll make it so you no longer have to see it anymore. Hey. Gathering my resolve, I let out a whisper. Lowering my head, I spread my arms wide. Almost as if I was preparing to take off, to soar above the rain clouds. As if I was trying to catch all the falling rain. All that's watching you is a delusion. I'll put you to rest now. Fairs of light danced about. They served as a gift handed down from the sky. A gift to his funeral. There it is. I slowly knelt to the ground, right before his collapsed body. I'll cry if I see your eyes. I'm sorry. I can't look at them. I softly embraced his head in my arms. His body was devoid of all strength. As if he was fully prepared for death. It's all so cruel, isn't it? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll give you peace now. His demeanor told me that I wasn't just doing this for my own sake. He has a very peaceful smile on his face. But that smile was so sad. Even though I held it in all this time, tears began to well up.
I'd held them back because I didn't ever want him to see those tears. He finally found peace, and I didn't want to worry him any further. I kissed him on the lips. They were cold, desiccated, and laden with seemingly endless sorrow, and yet when I kissed him, his trembling ceased. I was overjoyed to know that my warmth was of some use to him. If I drew back from his lips, he would see my teary face. If I drew back from his lips, I would want to kiss him again. If I drew back from his lips, I would be struck with such selfish feelings. I wouldn't be able to kill him anymore. My lips still enveloping his, I sank my D-sword into his chest. The sensation of it tearing through his skin, boring into his flesh, weaving through his bones, and slowly sinking through to the center of his body. It all passed through the sword and into my hands. I'm so sorry. You can sleep for as long as you want to now. Goodbye. Oh, was the sky blurring because of the rain? Because of my tears? His body was enveloped by countless particles of light, and as he slowly began to disappear, I reached my hand toward the sky. Somebody, please tell me. Just where could that sky of ours have gone?
Wowie zowie. Okay. I'm going to assume that's probably ending B. As I thought, a too good to be true ending. I feel like I need to mute this. I'm going to be completely and utterly honest with you. I'm going to be real with you. Have I always muted my own audio whenever I was meaning to mute desktop audio when it comes to credits? I might have actually been doing that. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Damn, though. Well, that's ending B. Depressing as all the others. Or as all the others, as if I know what the others are like. I don't know why I said that. Because the only other one I know is friggin' whatchamacallit, A. Ha, one. No. But yeah, that's the second ending. Crying Sky. So now we're going to be starting to get into the actual character endings. Let me go ahead and pull up my, the guide I got over here. I have to pull it from the side here. Okay, the next route we're going to be doing is the Nanami route. But we will be doing that next time. We're going to let the credits play out first. Again, I don't know if I have to if I can unmute this or not, but I don't know. Oh, you know what? Screw it. You guys can listen to it. I probably... If it's got... I don't know. I can just mute it with YouTube's auto thing, I think, so... It'll probably be fine. If not, I'll just mute it. That or I'll just have to redo the entire damn ending. Is that... Did that just say fetishism arc? On second thoughts, don't answer that question. I don't want to know. Whew. Once again, it felt like I was put into a trance there. Sorry if my, if I also wasn't voice acting like a Nor was. My nose feels slightly stuffy for some reason. I don't feel sick, though. My nose just feels slightly like it's stuffy. And I don't feel sick at all. I don't get it. Oh well. I don't know why. Hopefully I don't actually, I'm not actually getting sick, because that would be sucky. I want to play more of this game and of 100 Line. I'm playing through both these games at the same time. And I would hate if I have to stop it, either of them, for any reason. But yeah, that was yet another ending here for okay, I said Noah. So how many more endings do we got? Let me go ahead and just take a look at this. Let's see, Nanami, Yua, Ayase, Kozue, Sena, Rimi, and the final one. So 7. We only have 7 other endings remaining. Which is kind of actually fitting because there are 7 Black Knights. I don't know why I thought that. Do we get paranoid that you... Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I was getting paranoid of my own. You ever just get paranoid that you have skin cancer? No. That was a random question. Don't answer that. Can you tell I'm not good at filling in for time and speaking when it comes to credit sequences? I'm not good at it in general, I feel like, but... Anyways... Yeah, that's our second ending. Crying Skies. Too good to be true ending. It was interesting to also see it from see that final scene from Remi's perspective. Crying Sky. Saving system data. So yeah, next time we're gonna go end it here for today, and the next time we'll start working towards the next ending, the Nanami ending. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and hope to see you all next time. Peace.